Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm your girl Ashley a Million. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a post when I post, and stay up to date on the Wife Diaries. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about trying to conceive via IUI, and I'm going to share some of my experience with this and my current experience with this, and hopefully some of you can relate. And if you can relate, and if you have some suggestions or pointers, feel free to drop those down in the comment section below, because I love to engage with my viewers and things like that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Like I said, I will be talking to you guys about my current experience with trying to conceive via IUI. I've only tried to conceive twice with IUI, so this is my second try. We are in the very early stages of IUI, and I will get into the definitions and things like that of what IUI is and etc. So yeah, my name is Ashley. I am a 38-year-old female, and yeah, I know when you're past a certain age, especially like in your late 30s, you are considered a high risk. And things like that. I guess because when you're trying to conceive in your late 30s, your egg quality change, your egg count changes, and there are certain things that they have to take into consideration with your age and things like that with trying to conceive, I guess, with IUI. So, and not only am I 38 years old, I also battle with what they call PCOS. And for those of you who don't know what that is, PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So that means I get a lot of cysts in my ovaries and things like that, which can contribute to infertility. And with PCOS, you have to deal with a lot of things. Sometimes being obese, hair growing in weird places and things like that, which can be kind of embarrassing. To me, it's kind of embarrassing because it's like you're a whole female and you got hair growing on your chin and stuff like that, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, you have situations like that, and then like I said, it makes it hard for you to conceive with PCOS because you don't ovulate regularly, which is the main thing that you need in order to conceive. You have to ovulate. So yeah, so I have a couple of things working against me with trying to conceive, but like I said, with a lot of prayer and with the help of fertility specialists and things like that, we're hoping for a positive outcome with IUI. So what is IUI? IUI is a minimal invasive procedure which requires a fertility specialist using a tool to insert wash semen inside of your uterus, as close as possible to get it to where it needs to go in order to impregnate you. So that's the procedure that we're going through. And me being a military veteran, you get 6 tries before you have to try to take a different route, which we will either have to come out of pocket and pay, or work something out to where the VA will pay for it, which I'm referring to IVF, which is more of an invasive procedure. And with IVF, they take they take some of your eggs out, and they use the semen to fertilize the eggs outside of your body, and then they will put the eggs back in, and you get pregnant like that. Your chances with that versus IUI, it's more effective than IUI, which is why it's more invasive and it costs more. So we're hoping we don't have to take that route, and we hope that our second time around with IUI, it works. I'm praying that it works. So yeah, we're just hoping for the best with that. Okay, so for the price of IUI, it can be anywhere between $300 and $4,000, depending on your insurance and things like that per cycle. So like I said, I'm a disabled veteran, so the VA will cover the cost for 6 cycles, like I said, and we're on our second one. So we're hoping, like I said, for positive results within the second cycle, but if not, we'll just keep trying until we reach our goal. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was finding a known donor. And in this case, that's what we decided to use instead of using the cryobank. We've done our research with using cryobank, and it is costly, and so is using a known donor, which I will get to later on in the video about prices and things like that for using a known donor. With the cryobank, the donors are usually screened through the cryobank itself. Sometimes they get everything, sometimes they don't. You just kind of have to use your better judgment on which donor you choose if you do use a cryobank and things like that. You don't really get a whole lot of information as far as like their background and things like that, and they're considered anonymous donors versus a known donor. And with a known donor, you can find them on apps such as Just a Baby, Facebook groups, Atom, and things like that. So it just depends on where you decide to look to find your known donor. And the thing I do like about using a known donor versus a cryobank is that you can talk to the donors directly. You can set up dates to meet them in person and things like that to kind of get a feel for each other, get to know who they are in person versus like just chatting online or not really being able to speak to them like you would through a cryobank. You have no communication with them. So with the known donor, we used the app Just a Baby to find our known donor. We've been chatting with him on and off and things like that, and he seems pretty cool, pretty chill, pretty laid back. He seems to have everything in order. He seems to have his life in order and things like that. And also, just recently he came to the clinic where we're having everything done at to get some of his testings and things like that done. So that's a good thing with a known donor. And you can also, like I said, sit down and ask them questions about like what made them want to be a donor. Are they in touch with any of the families that they've donated to and things like that? You know, you kind of get a feel for each other, like I said. So like I said, we use Just a Baby to find our donor. And I will say it's good to kind of have like 3 lined up, or just like for backup, just in case your first choice doesn't work out and things like that. You can fall back on your second one and try with them, or your third or fourth, or however many you choose to have. So okay, and so like I was telling you guys, talking about the prices for a known donor versus an anonymous donor. Automatically with an anonymous donor, be expected to pay well over $1,000 to use the cryobank to find an anonymous donor. Not only are you paying for one vow or one try with an anonymous donor, you're also paying for shipping with the donor as well. So you have to pay the cryobank to ship to you, or if you pick it up, you still have to pay a deposit, and that deposit gets refunded back to you after you return the container that the specimen comes in. So like I said, you're paying for however many vows that you want to have during your try with having a baby for an anonymous donor, and you're also paying for shipping, and you're paying the deposit for the container. So you have to, depending on which cryobank you use, you have to add that up. So if you want 2 vows, you're going to pay for 2 vows plus shipping, plus the deposit for the container. And the deposit, it gets refunded back to you. Like I said, it's only just in case you decide you don't want to return the container, in which I recommend you return their container. So and then with a known donor, some of them charge, some of them don't. It just depends on the donor themselves. Our donor does not charge, which we appreciate heavily, because it can get really expensive. And if you're going through this journey like I am, and you're using a fertility clinic, it does get costly, because you have to pay for screening. You have to get genetics testing done, FDA screening, and not only that, in our situation, because FDA requires known donors specimen to be frozen, but they freeze up enough to give you enough chances to try. So I do appreciate that. Also, we have to pay for the genetics testing if he does not have that handy. So it, like I said, it gets costly if you're going through a fertility clinic, but in my case I do need to use a fertility clinic because, like I told you guys, I am 38 years old and I also have PCOS. So in this case I do need a fertility clinic handy, or to assist with me trying to get pregnant, because of my age and because I don't ovulate regularly, and it would be very difficult to try on our own, and I don't know when I ovulate. So they can manage it or they can induce it at the clinic, and they can time it based on them inducing my ovulation to know when it's time to do the insemination. So it does cost, unfortunately, but on a good note, our donor does not cost, and we get as many tries as we want with using our known donor. So we do appreciate that, instead of us having to pay per valve to try and it doesn't work, because that can get expensive too. If you're using the cryobank and you buy one valve and that doesn't work, then you buy another one, it just gets more expensive. So it's like we might as well bite the bullet, pay the fertility prices to get him screened thoroughly and everything else that we need. So that's really the only thing that we're paying for. And then on top of that, they do assist with the legal stuff with using a known donor, which I will get into next. Okay, so next, like I was saying, when using a fertility clinic, if you're using a donor at any time and you're going to the fertility clinic, depending on where you are, I'm not sure if all of them require this, but I know the one in Texas does, as well as Georgia, or as well as Florida. They require you to do, you talk with a psychiatrist, and it's called Mind 360, I think. They ask you some really like in-depth questions or personal questions, I guess, to see where your mind is, to see how your childhood was and your upbringing and things like that were, just to kind of see where you are and if you're like mentally if you're mentally capable of being a parent or taking care of a child and things like that. So it's really in-depth questions. And I will say, when we first tried it, it was kind of like, why do they need to know all of this stuff? But you kind of think about it and it's like, okay, I understand. Because if you're in a mental state where you're like not really capable of managing your own life or things like that, then you're probably not capable of, trying to take care of a child that solely relies on you. So I kind of understand that part. So yeah, like I said, with trying, with using a fertility clinic, they do require those things, and they do require you to talk to a psychiatrist and things like that. So, and then also with the fertility clinic that we're using, they do assist you with legal procedures with using a known donor, with making sure your paperwork is there. Like, you have to have a contract in place with your known donor, and that depending on what's in the contract, that both of you are abiding by that contract. So they do help you with that, and I do appreciate that, because with us, we do want our child to know, who assists with who assisted with bringing them into this world. So if he's okay with having communication with them, that's cool. There just won't be any like legal rights to them or anything like that. But we are open to them knowing who their actual like biological, I guess you could say, father or donor is. So yeah. And also, if you are using a known donor, it is like important that you do have a contract in place, that you do talk to somebody, like a lawyer or something like that, who can go over the contract, make sure everything is binding, and make sure everybody's following what's in the contract, because you don't want to create a contract and then you're basically saying that you're not seeking like child support or any type of whatever to the child, and then you later try to file child support against this person. Like, there have been people I've heard that have been messed over in this procedure with using a known donor, them not having a contract in place, it just got really messy. And that's just something that we're not trying to put ourselves in. We're trying to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's with this. So yeah, make sure you guys get a contract if you are using a known donor. With an anonymous donor, not so much, because you don't know who the person is, but with a known donor, you know who the person is, and you just want to make sure everybody's doing everything right and not messing each other over in the process of trying to bring a beautiful baby into this world. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the things you want to ask your known donor. So some of the questions that we asked him was, do you have a CMV testing done? If not, can you get one done? That's very important. If you're a person that don't have CMV, you want to make sure your donor is CMV negative as well. And for those of you who don't know what CMV means, I will put it somewhere up on the screen. That is something that is very important, because you do not want your child to have CMV, because they can cause issues at birth. It can cause issues after birth. It can just be a mess. So that's something you definitely want to ask. You also want to ask them if they got their genetic testing done, if they have recent labs and testing done like that. You also want to ask those questions too. Now, on a lighter note, some questions you want to ask are like, what are your hobbies? What do you do? What do you do for fun? Do you have any type of degrees? What is your family like? What is your family history? Questions like that. So you can I'll put some questions on the screen as well. Some of the important questions that you want to ask, and some questions that is kind of like optional if you want to ask those as well. Okay, and so the next thing I want to get into is IUI versus at-home insemination. So with my situation, I more so need hands-on fertility specialist help with trying to get pregnant. And there are a lot of people that do at-home insemination, which is cool. I don't knock it or anything like that. Do whatever makes you feel comfortable, do whatever makes you happy, and it's even cheaper if you do it at home versus using a fertility clinic. I wish I was a person that could do insemination at home, but unfortunately in my case I can't, so it is what it is. But like I said, IUI insemination via using a fertility clinic, you have to go in to the fertility center. You have to get testing done there. Like, you have to get your blood work done, you get your genetics testing done, you get your HSG testing done. If you don't know what that is, that's when they lay you on a table, they put speculums inside. You also get a pap smear and stuff like that done too, and they basically check to see if your fallopian tubes are open, if they're both open or not. And they also do like your follicle count or your egg count. They make sure your uterus and things is aligned and in place. They do ultrasounds. They do basically the whole workup to make sure you're able and capable of carrying a baby. So if everything looks good, then you're good to go. If there's some issues that they are concerned about, they'll probably prolong the procedure to make sure they take care of the situation. So that's a good thing with using a fertility clinic. And like I said, they take wash semen and they insert it into your uterus. So where the travel for the specimen is shorter versus having to go through so many loops and swoops and things like that to reach where it needs to be to get you pregnant. Now, with at-home insemination, you're basically timing and testing everything yourself as far as trying to get pregnant. I'm assuming with at home, you're not really doing all the workup, the lab workup and things like that. I'm not sure. I've never done it. So all I can say with at home insemination, you're basically just timing your ovulation, monitoring yourself, your basal body temperature and things like that, with using little test strips and stuff at home. And then when you reach your peak or whatever, I guess that's when you call your known donor, or you have your known donor on standby. You have him do his business, and then you take the specimen and you insert it yourself. So the only difference I know with that is you're going as far as you can stick the instrument inside, versus having a fertility specialist come in with a long speculum and inserting the specimen as close as possible to where it needs to go. So that's the only thing I know with those two as being the difference or whatever. But whatever floats your boat, whatever you desire on how you want to get pregnant with either or, do your thing. So the next thing I want to talk about is what's required for IUI. There's not really much required as far as, like I said, getting your workup done, your testing, your blood work, your ultrasound, and your HSG and things like that tested. Before you start anything, you want to already start taking prenatal pills or the gummies. I personally like the gummies because it's easier for me to stomach and digest. It's easier on my stomach versus me taking the pills, because for some reason the pills are like doesn't sit well on my stomach. Also, if you're doing IUI, you want to go to a trusting fertility specialist to help monitor you. If you're a person like me who are in your late 30s and you're battling with PCOS, I'm sure there's a lot of us that are battling with PCOS, but we'll get through it. So yeah, I'm just hoping for the best in my situation as well as others also. So yeah, that's basically all you really need. If you have a good insurance, then your insurance will help you as far as like the cost effects and things like that. Like I said, with the VA, they are allowing me up to 6 cycles to try with IUI before we have to try something else. And you also need your donor or the specimen, whether it's an anonymous donor or a known donor. You'll need one of the two in order to get pregnant. And next, I want to talk to you guys about the timeline. So for everybody, I want to say that your timeline is different. Everybody's timeline is different. It depends solely on your cycle, the time you have your period, the time you ovulate, and things like that. But if you're, like I said, if you're a person like me who has PCOS, your cycles aren't regular and things like that, and you don't ovulate regularly, then you're gonna more so need a fertility specialist that will be there to help you and monitor you as far as that go. Like if you're not ovulating regularly, like my first cycle, for example, they basically gave me they gave me letrozole. I know some people do letrozole or Clomid. The first time we tried, they gave me letrozole. I think it was like for 5 or 7 days, and then I went in for an ultrasound. They measure your follicles or your eggs and things like that, and then they tell you when to take what they call trigger shot. And what the trigger shot does is more so to make your body release an egg. So they are inducing your ovulation, and then they're forcing your body to release an egg. So that's where the Ovidrel comes in handy at, and that's what they call your trigger shot. Now, if you're a person like me that can't stick yourself with a needle, hopefully the person if you have a partner or your spouse or whatever, you can have them give you your trigger shot. I let my wife give me my trigger shot. So yeah, that's basically how that goes. But it all depends on when you have your period, when you go see your doctor. Basically, it is on them to tell you when to do this and when to do that. So everybody's timing is different. So don't expect your timing to get pregnant or timing to ovulate and things like that to be like someone else's, because our bodies are different and everybody's body is on a different time schedule. So basically just go off of what your fertility specialist is telling you. Now, if you're a person that have a regular period and things like that, you can kind of pretty much time when you're going to ovulate and things like that, which is good for you. So you're not one of us out here who's struggling to ovulate or trying to figure out when we're going to ovulate, if we ovulate and things like that. So if you're a person that has a regular cycle, you should be able to time yours, or you can use the ovulation strips and things like that. And lastly, I want to just discuss preparation for everything. If you're a person that's going through this journey like I am, or like we are, and you're using a fertility clinic, you're gonna want to prepare yourself for the financial side. You want to prepare yourself for the legal side and things like that. You want to make sure if you're using a known donor, that they are on board with everything, that they are in agreement with everything, especially with everything that's in the contract. And you want to make sure you're, like I said, you're taking your prenatals beforehand. You're asking the questions that you need to ask your doctor, your donor, etc. And if you're going through this with a partner or spouse, whatever, you want to make sure you both are on board with everything. So you want to mentally prepare, physically prepare, financially prepare, and all the good things. Just prepare yourself as much as possible. You cannot prepare yourself enough in trying to bring a child into this world. Well, that is all for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. I just wanted to come on here and share from my trying to conceive experience with you guys. I know there are a lot of trying to conceive videos out there, a lot of them that I have watched, but a lot of them are like years old. So I just wanted to come on here and do a short chit chat with you guys on my journey with trying to conceive at age 38 with PCOS. So if you guys can relate, like I said, and you have some suggestions, feel free to drop those down in the comment section, because I love to engage with my viewers and things like that. And also, if you have questions or something that you want to know that I did not answer, feel free to drop those in the comments as well. And like I said, if you're new here, please subscribe. Make sure you like, comment, and share your thoughts, and make sure you turn on your bell notifications so you guys never miss a post when I post. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye.